The noise around Celtic Park before kickoff already told its own story, a mix of tension, hope, and that familiar expectation that comes with watching this club, especially after a run where nothing quite seemed to click. From the first whistle, you could feel Celtic trying to impose themselves, moving the ball with intent, looking sharper, more urgent, and far less passive than we have seen in recent weeks. There was a willingness to get bodies forward, to stretch the pitch, and to take risks rather than simply recycle possession for the sake of it. Even early on, there were signs that this was going to be a different afternoon, with the movement off the ball looking more coordinated and the passing lanes opening up far quicker than they have done recently. As the game settled, Celtic began to find joy down the flanks, particularly on the left side, where the overlapping runs and early deliveries caused constant problems. The opening goal felt inevitable rather than fortunate, built from pressure that had been steadily mounting. The ball was worked into a dangerous area, and when the chance arrived, it was taken with the kind of composure that has been missing at times this season. It was the type of finish that comes from being in the right place at the right time, but also from belief, that sense that if you keep making those runs, the opportunity will eventually fall your way. The response from Aberdeen, though, exposed an issue that has haunted Celtic too often. A lapse in concentration, a turnover in a bad area, and suddenly the game swung. The equaliser came from a situation that should have been managed far better, and there was a moment where you feared the familiar pattern was about to repeat itself. In previous weeks, that sort of setback felt like a hammer blow, but this time there was a different reaction. Heads did not drop, the tempo did not disappear, and crucially, the players kept trusting the system rather than abandoning it in frustration. The midfield was central to that resilience. There were still the odd loose passes, moments that made you shake your head, but overall, there was a sense of control that has been lacking. The ball was moved quicker, angles were offered, and there was a clear idea of how Celtic wanted to progress play through the middle and into the final third. It was not perfect, far from it, but it felt like a framework was finally starting to take shape, something tangible to build on rather than a collection of disconnected moments. One of the standout aspects of the performance was the influence from deeper areas, particularly from the left side of defence. The quality of delivery into the box was relentless, with crosses coming in early and often forcing Aberdeen to defend facing their own goal. It was not just about crossing for the sake of it either, but about picking moments, clipping balls into space, and trusting runners to attack the right areas. That approach created chance after chance, and on another day, the scoreline could have been far more emphatic. Up front, the story remained frustrating. Celtic created an abundance of opportunities, hitting the woodwork multiple times and seeing clear chances go begging. It was one of those afternoons where the expected goals tally tells a story of dominance, yet the actual scoreline never quite reflected how one-sided large spells of the match were. Still, the key difference was that Celtic did not let that frustration turn into panic. They kept pushing, kept believing, and eventually that persistence paid off. The winning goal was a moment that encapsulated what supporters want to see from this team. A well-worked move, quality delivery from wide, and a decisive finish at the back post. It was met with an eruption of noise around the stadium, not just because of the goal itself, but because of what it represented. Relief, yes, but also validation that the approach, the patience, and the willingness to stick to the plan could actually deliver results. Moments later, the contest was put beyond doubt. And that was when the mood truly shifted. What had been a nervy afternoon turned into something far more celebratory, with the final goal sparking scenes of genuine joy in the stands. It was especially fitting that the scorer was someone who has given so much to the club over the years, continuing a remarkable personal record that speaks to consistency, professionalism, and an enduring connection with the support. The ovation that followed said everything about the respect and affection felt in that moment. On the touchline, the reaction mirrored what was happening on the pitch. There was visible relief, a release of pressure that had been building with every passing game. You could see it in the body language of the players as well. Arms raised, smiles breaking through, a reminder that confidence is such a fragile thing in football. One positive result can change the atmosphere entirely, not just among supporters, but within the squad itself. Defensively, there are still questions to be answered. The space left in transition remains a concern, particularly when possession is lost cheaply in central areas. Against stronger opposition, those moments will be punished more ruthlessly. The goalkeeper's confidence also appears shaken, with hesitation creeping into decisions that once seemed automatic. These are issues that cannot be ignored, but they feel more manageable when the team in front is functioning with greater cohesion. What stood out most was the sense of togetherness in the closing stages. Even as frustration had threatened to creep in earlier, the players stuck together. The crowd stayed largely supportive, and there was a shared determination to see the job through. That has not always been the case recently, which makes this performance feel significant beyond the 3 points alone. There is no escaping the fact that Aberdeen made things easier at times, particularly with their approach out of possession. But that should not detract from what Celtic did well. You can only play what is in front of you, and Celtic took full advantage by dominating territory, creating chances, and ultimately finding a way to win despite adversity. It was not flawless, but it was honest, proactive, and full of intent. Looking ahead, this performance feels like a starting point rather than a destination. The system is still bedding in, players are still adjusting, and the squad clearly needs reinforcements, particularly in attacking areas where composure in front of goal is vital. But for the first time in a while, there's a sense that something is beginning to align, that the ideas being implemented might actually take root. Football has a habit of turning quickly, and one result does not erase the issues that have been evident over the past months. Still, afternoons like this matter. They restore belief, they buy time, and they remind everyone involved what Celtic can look like when things start to click, even if only in flashes. The challenge now is to carry this momentum forward, to turn a promising performance into a consistent run, and to ensure that this game is remembered not as a one-off, but as the moment the season finally found its direction. As the dust settles on that result, the conversation naturally shifts to what this performance actually tells us about where Celtic are right now. There is a temptation to get carried away after a win like this, especially one that felt so badly needed, but there is also value in recognizing the small details that hinted at progress beneath the surface. This was not just about scoring goals or finally getting over the line. It was about how the team responded to moments of stress, how they managed the game emotionally, and whether the structure on the pitch gave the players something solid to lean on when things threatened to wobble again. One of the more encouraging signs was how committed the players looked to the shape and principles they were asked to follow. In previous matches, it often felt as though The system collapsed the moment something went wrong, with players reverting to habits that offered short-term safety but no real control. This time, even after conceding, Celtic kept circulating the ball, kept pushing their wingbacks high, and kept trusting that space would eventually open up. That kind of discipline does not come overnight, especially in a squad that has been asked to change so much in a short period of time, but it suggests that the message from the dugout is finally starting to land. The role of the midfield in that cannot be overstated, and there was far more movement ahead of the ball, far more willingness to receive under pressure, and a clearer idea of where the next pass should go. It was not flawless, and it never will be, but there was a rhythm to Celtic's play that has been missing. Instead of hopeful balls into crowded areas, there was an attempt to draw opponents out, to create overloads, and to exploit the spaces that appeared as a result. When that worked, Celtic looked dangerous and confident, a far cry from the hesitant side we have watched struggle to break teams down. Out wide, the contribution from the fullback areas gave the team a real attacking edge. The timing of runs, the variety of delivery, and the understanding between those players and the attackers ahead of them caused constant problems. It was not just about whipping crosses into the box, but about recognizing when to go early and when to hold the ball, dragging defenders out of position and opening lanes for runners arriving late. That intelligence in wide areas is something Celtic have relied on heavily in successful seasons, and seeing it return, even in flashes, felt significant. Despite all of that, the lack of cutting edge in front of goal remains impossible to ignore. Celtic created enough chances to put the game to bed long before it became nervy, and the fact that they did not is a concern that will not disappear with one victory. Hitting the woodwork repeatedly and missing clear opportunities is not bad luck when it happens week after week. It points to a deeper issue in terms of confidence and quality in the final third. The build-up play is improving, but without a reliable finisher, that progress risks being undermined. That is where the next few weeks become so important. There is a sense that the foundations are being laid, but foundations alone do not win matches at this level. The squad looks thin in key attacking positions, and while effort and structure can take you so far, there is a clear need for players who can turn dominance into goals on a consistent basis. The January window looms large, and how the club responds there could define whether this performance becomes the start of something meaningful or simply a brief moment of relief. Defensively, the concerns around transitions and pace remain part of the discussion. When Celtic lose the ball in central areas, there is still a vulnerability that better sides will target relentlessly. The spacing between midfield and defense can open up too easily, and once opponents break through that first line, it often becomes a race back towards goal. These are problems that demand both tactical tweaks and the right personnel, particularly players with the speed and awareness to recover quickly when things break down. The situation in goal also adds another layer of uncertainty. Confidence is such a delicate thing for a goalkeeper, and once doubt creeps in, it can affect every decision. There were moments in this match where hesitation was visible, where commitment to coming off the line or staying set seemed uncertain. As supporters will naturally debate changes in that position, especially when the margins are so fine, and it feels like an issue that will not go away quietly. What did stand out, though, was the reaction of the crowd as the game wore on. There was frustration, yes, but it never fully tipped into hostility. Instead, there was an almost collective understanding that this team needed backing rather than pressure in that moment. That atmosphere matters more than people sometimes realize. Players feel it, they respond to it, And when a stadium stays with a team through difficult spells, it can make the difference between collapse and resilience. The involvement of homegrown players in decisive moments also added an emotional layer to the afternoon. There is something powerful about seeing players who understand the weight of the shirt step up when it matters. It connects the present to the past, reminds everyone of the identity of the club, and reinforces the idea that there is still a core to build around, even in times of transition. Those moments resonated deeply with the support and gave the victory an added sense of meaning. The task now is to ensure it is not an isolated moment, but the beginning of something more sustainable, something that restores confidence and re-establishes the standards expected at this club. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. There's a hum round Parkhead that feels different, the kind that starts as a murmur in the stands and grows legs of its own. Billy Gilmour, pictured in Celtic green with the number 8 on his back, has set tongues wagging, and among the punters, the comparison is already being dared. "The new MODRIC," comes the cry, half joking, half hopeful, and entirely fueled by the idea that the Hoops might be about to land a conductor for the middle of the pitch. Nobody at Lennox Town is putting their name to anything, mind. Official lines are tight, the gaffer saying all the right things about respect and focus, but football folk know symbols matter. And the number 8 at Celtic is never just a shirt. It speaks of craft, of tempo, of a player trusted to take the ball when it's hot and make sense of the chaos. Seeing Gilmour associated with that number has supporters dreaming of a side that keeps the ball, dictates the rhythm, and plays with a bit of continental calm. The whispers say it isn't about stardust or celebrity, but fit. Gilmour's game has always been about angles and bravery, about asking for it again when others hide. In Glasgow, that kind of nerve is currency. Old heads in the press box are careful, reminding anyone who'll listen that comparisons can weigh heavy. Modric is Modric after all. Yet even the skeptics admit the idea has a pull. A Scottish playmaker coming home to run games in green and white. For now, it's all smoke and speculation, a story fed by a shirt number and a crowd desperate for a new hero. Whether it turns to fire is another matter, but in the pubs and on the pavements, the dream is alive, and sometimes at Celtic, that's where it starts. Hello, fan, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.